When you tell a story, you spark a connection. That's how humans have communicated since the beginning of time, by telling stories. As human beings, we are automatically drawn to stories because we see ourselves reflected in them. Stories have a way of transporting us away from our realities and opening our minds to new experiences and perceptions of other people and how they think and feel. Recently, I sat down with Kelly Peckham, a woman who has made a very successful career of telling stories. Kelly has crossed continents, seeking out the most compelling topics, people, and places to share their stories with us. Now it's time to meet Kelly Peckham. Let's hear and learn more about her and some of her own story. Thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and have this conversation with me. I have been waiting for this opportunity to do this for quite some time. I've wanted you on the stage at Power of the Purse over the years, and our timing has just never worked. You've always been away on location shooting, and so here you are. I've used COVID to capture you and get you to sit down and do this. So thank you very much. Here. You have chosen a career that is in a male-dominated industry. You've managed to survive. You managed to thrive in that. So I think my audience are going to be as interested as I am in finding out. So firstly, how does a young woman in her early 20s in London, Ontario, Canada, find herself in the video and the world of production and the world of TV shows, et cetera, et cetera? So give us some of that, if you will.
Well, I did a journalism degree. For me, what I work in is called unscripted, which means everything I do has kind of a documentary base to it. So I don't do feature films and things like that. So my journalism degree serves me well there. In journalism school, we were young female journalists coming out. We're up against it, but there were pioneers who blazed the way. There were the, Ann Medina out in the war zone in her blue raincoat, So there are a lot of women who kind of blazed the trail for us. But there were challenges coming up through. I right away did some news. I thought I was going to work in news and realized I don't like the daily deadlines. So I got an opportunity to go to Toronto when I was about 25 to work on something called The Shirley Show, which was a talk show. And so I gave up my full-time job and took an 8-month contract, doubled my cost of living, and dropped myself in the middle of Toronto. Nearly starved for about 4 years, riding around on my bike, couldn't afford to pull over and get a cold drink, dropping off resumes, 50 at a time, I did singing telegrams in between TV shows. I waitressed. I can say I am the worst waitress in the world, and I find it more stressful than being in a war zone. Really you just have to stick with it, and I've been freelance my entire career. I've worked in children's programming. I've worked in reality TV. I've worked in live studio cooking shows, just about everything. At the time, you did have to push, and I did have some discrimination. And I do remember being in a national newsroom and having some, sexual harassment going on. And I've had those moments where I've had to push harder than a man in my position would. And then there's the alternate. When women started coming into the industry in droves, then I worked with a producer, and I said to him, wow, you've got almost all women working in your production house here. And he said, yeah, that's because they'll work cheaper and work a lot more hours. They'll work harder for cheaper. And I'm thinking, well, that's not good either. That's not good either. And that's when I realized I had to learn how to negotiate my value. So it's one thing to get the job. It's another thing to get the job at the valuation that you're due. And that's where you have to learn to put yourself forward. And because I'm working a different job every 6-8 months, as I move from program to program, I had to be a really good advocate for myself.
And that's a theme that I have heard in the other interviews that I've done so far for this Impact show, from women saying exactly that one of the things as women we have to do, and we have to do it a lot better and more of it, is to advocate for our worth. Really put that value there and don't And don't back down, right? Don't think that you have to negotiate and downsell yourself, but it's a tough thing to do and you have to learn it, right?
Well, and you do, especially in this industry where you've got 50 other people who can step into the position if you decide not to take it. So you have to kind of say, you know what, if you want me and you want my experience, then this is what it costs, and stick to that. I wiggle on my rate, but you have to know that going forward. I've worked a lot of different positions within my career, starting off doing kind of research or associate producing and, lining up guests for Canada AM, and then moved on to, show producing, and then working for a network, overseeing programming that's coming into the network. But I've had really a great time doing everything from early days. I worked on a show called Flight Path, and that was with Michael McClure, who is one of the premier journalists in this country. I mean, Michael was there at the fall of Saigon. He came out of the jungle with Castro. Like, he was just an amazing man, and he gave me my opportunity to direct my first big show. So this was an hour-long aviation series, and it was a very, very macho male series. And, he started me off with an ultralight episode to do my hour-long documentary, and in no time I was the Pentagon contact, and he sent me to Kosovo with a Canadian helicopter unit in the middle of the conflict. And we did everything, our camera was lased and went down in the first day by a Russian helicopter. So we were dealing with a little tiny camera that we took with us. And we were, out on patrols. We went to places that had been bombed. We went out to the mass graves. We met the people. We were up in the helicopters trying to avoid, striking wires. And then on the last night for our big finale, we borrowed a little camera, a little handy cam from one of the guys in the camp, and we strapped night vision goggles to it. And we rigged up a little system to get into the comm system and sent the cameraman up at the helicopter. And the sound guy and I went down on the ground, and we were there when someone was shot, and they were looking for the guy, and we're trying to avoid them. Like, this is exciting stuff. And I was given that opportunity by someone who believed in me. And his mentorship was what elevated my career so much and made me realize I can do anything in this career. If I can come through that experience and have the iron kahunas to get through that, I can do anything. And from there, I did a lot of work for Discovery Channel and working on Daily Planet, and that sent us all over the world. And the really wonderful thing about that experience was that every story that I did was mine. I found the subject matter. I did all the interviews ahead of time. I went out and did swings around the world and shot these fabulous stories. They sent me into Puerto Rico after the hurricane. I went in with one story idea and came out a week later with 5 features, just hustling on the ground, no connectivity, finding people that would be great science stories and would play along with us. We'd had, I love that. I love flying by the seat of my pants. And the nice thing is I would shoot it, I'd bring it back, I'd write the script, I'd have someone go over my script and give me some input because you always need an extra set of eyes on your work. I'd go in and edit it, I'd oversee the voice record from the hosts, I would choose the music, I'd mix it, I'd work with color correct. So the story was entirely yours the whole time, and I got to see the world and go into some of the coolest places you've ever heard of. So much work with NASA, all over the world. And then I've done some lifestyle work, so that's completely different. I created a show called Till Debt Do Us Part for a production company in Winnipeg.
I remember that show.
Trained up the host, dealt with people who had failing finances, crazy stuff. I was getting phone calls at midnight. We'd walk in to shoot a show and find out that our guests were being evicted the next day. You're dealing with real people, real situations, real crisis, real stakes. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of variety, and that's what I love. The challenge of taking on something new every chance I get and creating something fabulous out of it. And now I'm doing some developing of my own shows with a group of professionals in the industry that I really, really admire. And, at this age, I think this is my last kick at trying to sell my own TV shows. instead of just kind of being a gun for hire.
Today, currently, you are working with Oxygen Network, correct? And you're on a true crime show?
Yes.
The Unexpected Killer, correct?
Yes, we're doing season 2 of The Unexpected Killer. I got a call from a producer who's fabulous a couple of years ago, and she brought me in on a true crime series for a production company in Toronto that also has offices in LA. And they're doing this big true crime series, which is huge now. There's so much true crime. Everybody's looking for true crime. It's got a massive audience. And it has its own particular bend. And I'm the documentary director. So what I do is I'm in charge of preparing the questions and interviewing all of the people, the real people who are involved in that, the detectives, the prosecutors, the families of the victims. And that's the narrative of the show, is those interviews. And then I also go around the area where the crime happened, and we film the police station and the home where, people were shot, maybe the gas station where the camera was up there that caught the killer's car going by as a part of the evidence. And we go and do all of that as well. And then there's another team that specialize in the dramatic reenactments, and they take all of those scenes that need to be reenacted, and they do that. So I'm the full doc director.
You said that, there's a proliferation of these true crime. Why is that? What do you think? I mean, obviously you've put some thought into this, right? Why are they so popular? What has changed, or what's the need? What's happened in society? Because you're right, there's a lot of them. I'll flip through, especially now we're all kind of watching a lot more TV because of COVID, right? But there's so much of that on there. So what is the appeal to it, or the reason, do you think?
Well, I think mysteries have always been big sellers as books, and now basically we're doing mysteries that have even more stakes because you're meeting real people who have lost loved ones and real cops who really have to get the killer. And when I do my interviews, I press those compassionate beats. Was there a moment when you really thought you might not get justice for your loved one? Was there that spot where you thought you wouldn't be able to bring this person to justice, where this crime would go cold? And people like to unravel those things for themselves. And I just think that the stakes in a true crime story are so high, and you don't find out until the end, so you're going to stick with it. You're on a journey of discovery with these things, and it's a world that you don't even think about, and it involves real people, and I think that's why it appeals to us.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I can see that because it's real people, and it's really their stories, isn't it? This isn't just fictionalized. It's not, one of the series that are detective shows, etc., but this is, and it's also in real time in a way, too.
True life can sometimes be far stranger than fiction. Look what we've gone through in the last 4 years. You could not write that story because no one would buy it, right? But when it's real, it has an impact. Everything I do is storytelling. You're sharing a journey. You're telling a story. You're weaving a tale, and there are certain flows that we take with our storytelling, and that's what keeps us compelled. And if you're a good storyteller, then whether you're doing a PSA or a corporate video or a show for Discovery Channel, what are the stakes? Why do I care? Who are the characters? Explore all of those things and tell me a tale that's going to keep me attached to it. And that's my specialization. I am a storyteller, and that's what I love, and that's what you're doing here. You're telling a story.
Absolutely, and everybody's got a story. And I think that the more opportunity we have to do just what we're doing and introduce people to other people so that we can learn what's your story, I just think that just sets the world right somehow in my mind. That it allows us to connect on a level that we wouldn't normally connect on. And then you want to share it with others, right? So I think you're absolutely right. And you are a great storyteller. And so you clearly have honed your craft, woman, over the years, because that's why you get picked up and people want to deal with you, right? And have you take on their projects. So.
Well, and it makes for really good dinner party conversation.
Because we're all dealing with COVID, what's it done to the production world for you? I mean, I've been certainly, we see that TV shows, that were used to have gone on hiatus until they were able to start, and they're coming back now. You know, the Grey's Anatomies and all those are starting to shoot. So what's that done in real life to you and the production, and how do you manage that? How do you pivot through it, I guess?
As far as the true crime series, last year I was on the road 2 weeks out of the month with my crew, going and filming these stories and being in the field with them and directing everything. And this year they said, let's try it remotely. We have to do it. We'd like you to do it, and let's try it remotely. So I appear in the interview room on a computer next to the camera on a platform. They put the computer on a platform. We Skype in. They've got the guest's audio coming through their microphone over their head, non-touch. We don't put a microphone on them. Everything is not touching anyone. And then they have a speaker set up, and they feed the computer audio through a speaker into the room so they can hear me well. And I'm doing all of my interviews sitting here in my office with my dog on my foot. When we go to do our B-roll, I get on FaceTime and they show me around the area.
So what do you do when you're not working and you are relaxing and it's your time, or you're in your husband's time? Do you travel or do you not travel? It's curious to know sort of where is the appeal then for you on the opposite end of this, with so much travel under your belt?
Well, the joy of this career is that when you're working for 8 months and then you know you're going to have a couple of months where you're not going to be able to get another project, that's the travel time. Travel's my passion. I only really, really relax when I leave this house. When I'm not here, I totally shut down and I let everything go away. Otherwise, I'm hustling and I'm networking and I'm coming up with new ideas and I'm working on show ideas, and but I have to get out to get away and to relax. Somebody said to me a couple of years ago, oh, we've probably only got 25 summers left. And I thought, what? Oh my God, what a way to put that. That sounds like nothing, right?
Who adds this up?
Yeah, but when you think about that, to be active and to get out and see the world and want to hike a volcano or do some of these things or run a zip line, we want to do that now. We don't want to wait. And in COVID time, it's getting out in the sunshine with the dogs. You know, they keep us sane.
What about education? What trade, what education, what experiential, what should somebody have behind them now? You had a journalism degree, you got in the way you got in. What do you think would be the right things to look at as far as what's the skills, what's the learning I should have if I want to pursue this career today?
If you like unscripted, journalism degree is a great background. If you're interested in doing on-set work, radio and television arts, media programs at the university, I think that the Ryerson and Western programs are fantastic. And here in London, we've also got OEART, which is one of the best sound schools in the country. All of these roles are critical in our business, and we've got the training right here in the city, which is extraordinary. That's why we're so keen to get the film office here, start pulling production out of the GTA, spread it around the province, bring those good paid jobs, those exciting opportunities here at home so our grads aren't moving away.
Kelly, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join me in the conversation today. This has been great. It was the kind of up close and personal that I wanted to do and share with you, with everyone who is watching this. It really has been, it's been wonderful. It's been enlightening. And I thank you for being willing to be a storyteller on my show and to share your story.
Thanks, Cynthia. It's been a lot of fun. And one last thing I'd like to say is that with digital media, with YouTube, there's so many opportunities out there to be creative, and never hesitate to find your own inner storyteller, because if you've got a cell phone, the opportunity is there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. Wonderful words of wisdom to end this with. So thank you, and best of luck with everything that you've got on your plate. Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia.